Adventuremice!
The Mouse Islands are being attacked by a big scary otter, and the daring Adventuremice team are trying to stop him. They've got a big firework rocket that they're going to let off to try and scare him away. What could possibly go wrong?
Ding, ding, ding.
The fuse began to burn. Skipper tossed the match overboard and turned to run. He was startled to see Pedro still standing right behind him. "Take cover," he shouted, and scampered away to shelter with the others. Pedro scampered with him, but he had not scampered far before something yanked him back. He looked round and saw that his tail had got tangled in one of the lengths of string which still trailed from the rocket. "Pedro, hurry up," shouted the others.
Sorry,
said Pedro, and reached down to untangle his tail, but the string was hopelessly knotted around it. He glanced up nervously at the rocket. The fuse fizzed fiercely. Pedro squeaked in fright as he raced to untie himself. Too late! The rocket sneezed sparks and shot into the sky. Pedro shot after it.
Ah!
He screamed as he went hurtling towards Mortlake. The otter screamed too. He had been creeping along the headland towards the town, planning to catch the mouselets as they crowded ashore. When the rocket came racing at him, he thought it was a thunderbolt. It whisked past his face close enough to singe his whiskers. "Oh!" he howled. He fled across the headland, flung himself into the waves, and swam away from the Mouse Islands as fast as he could, vowing never to return. The rocket carried on, up and up, high into the sky above the deep water channel, with poor Pedro dangling behind it until it burst with a colossal bang! Pedro tumbled through the sky. It was no place for a small mouse. To make matters worse, the string tied round his tail was on fire, and the flames were getting closer and closer to his bottom.
Eek!
He squeaked, and then,
Gloop!
because he had dropped into the sea. The water was very cold and very wet, but at least it put the fire out. When Pedro bobbed to the surface, he saw a beach nearby and swam towards it. He scrambled out onto the sand and lay there gasping. It was only when he had recovered enough to sit up and look around that he realised where he had landed. The rocket had carried him right across the deep water channel. He was marooned on one of the nameless isles. Dun, dun, dun.
Help!
Well, I'm Philip Reeve.
And I'm Sarah McIntyre.
And that was a peek at our book,
Adventuremice,
Otter Chaos.
It's a story about a young mouse named Pedro.
And he sets off on adventures and finds his way to the Mouse Islands. And there he meets the Adventuremice, a team of daring mice who go to the rescue of any mouse who gets into trouble.
And they have ships, a plane, a helicopter.
And they all live in this magnificent mouse base. Here's Sarah's picture of it. And as you can see, it's been cut away so you can see all inside it. There are their little sleeping nests up there. And there's the kitchens. And the helicopter pad and the submarine pen.
Lookout tower.
Lookout tower. There's the composting toilet. Sarah, is that a poo?
Anyway.
Moving on.
Pedro wants to become part of the Adventuremice team, but first he has to prove that he's brave enough. And when a big scary otter starts menacing the Mouse Islands, he gets a chance to do just that.
And we're often asked where we get our ideas from. So, Sarah, where did we get the idea from?
Well, when we were in lockdown, it was it was very boring. And I wanted to go on adventures, but of course I couldn't because we all sat indoors. So I had this little collection of model ships and planes and things. And I started doing paintings of them. But to make them more interesting, I put little mice on board them. And I thought, I wonder where these mice are going. I said, Philip, do you fancy doing an Adventuremice story with me?
And I said, yes, of course I would, because what could be more fun than writing about mice on ships and in planes and in submarines and helicopters and things.
So here's the islands that we designed. And they're all very exciting places to visit. And with Pedro, you get to visit them too.
So it's kind of tiny adventures happen, but
Yeah.
they're big if you're a mouse.
And I think a lot of us have been shut away lately. And we've been kind of lonely with lockdown and things. And it's quite scary sometimes when you first go out into the world, like when you're starting school or meeting new people. And that's kind of what Pedro is going through. It's very exciting, but he's also very nervous. Will the other Adventuremice like him? Can he be brave enough to become part of their team? So join us in reading
Adventuremice!
Adventuremice!